Hey, Coach, how are you doing? Thanks for taking the time. Just in general, just your thoughts. I know it's totally dysfunctional putting a team together in the middle of a pandemic and not much of an off season and everything else. Just your general thoughts, I suppose, on how it's all gone so far and how close to ready you feel that you are for the season to start.
Yeah, it's been quite the off season, fall, all that. But I think our kids have done a great job. They've really handled this as well as you could ever expect young people to, and they've been as responsible as you can be. We've worked really hard. I think they've really committed a lot to this point, and I like where we are, but it's also kind of a scary feeling because, usually at this point we would have scrimmaged somebody, we would have had an exhibition game. So there's just still a lot of unknowns, and we won't really get those answers until we tip it up on Wednesday versus Akron.
hmm And just this is kind of a 5 mile up in the air question. Ohio State, went to the one Final Four, a long, long time ago,
Yeah.
has dominated the Big Ten in a lot of respects in the almost 30 years since then. Just what in your mind, as you continue to build this, are the things you're really working on to make Ohio State a program that can go deep in the NCAA tournament, get back to a Final Four, I guess?
Yeah, we've had some really good teams here, but we have not obviously been able to make a Final Four run. And I feel like right now we have the right players in the program. I really like this group, and this group also has been the best team that we've had so far from a chemistry standpoint. And I'm hoping that may be something that is maybe like an ingredient that we just haven't quite had that was strong enough in that area that could be the difference maker for us in the coming years. Because this group is really tight knit. They spend a lot of time off the court, and I just think their kind of love and respect for each other, I'm hoping is the difference maker for us in the future years.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Up next, Wyatt Crocher.
Kevin, you mentioned chemistry. In a lot of ways, this group felt like this was the beginning last year for this group with all the new faces that came in. So what are the areas that kind of need to improve with this group in year two as they continue to grow?
Like I said, I mentioned the chemistry, but from a basketball standpoint, I think a couple areas where we need to be better this year is just more consistent defensively. And we kind of had that down the stretch last year. And then being a better rebounding team would be two areas where I think we've got to make some strides.
And Dorka led the way last year in scoring, but it's a very consistent amount of points for you guys getting from a lot of players on the team. Are you expecting that same level of like even distribution from a lot of your like point scorers?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to be at our best when we really spread the ball around. The other thing that we need to do is make sure we're getting balance in what we do. We can get a little 3-point happy. And so we got to make sure we're getting the ball around the basket and scoring from the perimeter and getting the free throw line.
Thank you.
Up next, Jacob Benji.
Hey, Kevin, I'm curious how you've prepared for an Akron team that, Ohio State hasn't played since 2000.
Yeah, so, we did the best we could in terms of watching film from last year, and they've got a lot of different personnel, so that part's been a little bit trickier. But, they ran really good offense last year, so I would assume they're going to stick with that. They did a really nice job, and they had a really good season last year, so I know we'll have our hands full on Wednesday.
Up next, Patrick Murphy.
Hey, Coach. Steve asked you about the difficulties of preparing for a season, but I'm curious, as you get into the season, what you're kind of expecting given, I guess, the unexpected. Coach Holtman's talked previously about, he has a certain number of games scheduled, but he's not sure if those will all get played. What are you telling the girls, the team, about that situation, and how are you trying to be flexible as you start this thing?
Yeah, it's been really tough because, everybody's in the same boat. Like we have a text thread of about 25 coaches in the Midwest. And every time somebody gets a game dropped, they send a text out the dates they need a game. And so it's literally every day getting up-to-date information on who needs games. And we've already had one dropped. So we're currently looking for one to fill out the non-conference portion of our schedule. And so just as it relates to our players is, I let them know the information when I get it. And by the way, we don't even have a Big Ten schedule yet. I think it's going to come out today. But I let them know when I know, and then, but really always emphasizing that we're going to have to be really flexible. Things are going to obviously change, and some games are going to get dropped and some are going to get added, and we'll just have to, kind of go with the flow. And that's the way it's going to be this year.
Do you think it helps that there have been sports? I mean, when some of the leagues started to first come back, the NBA, Major League Baseball, I mean, people weren't sure what this was going to look like. Now we've seen how sports do this and how they can postpone games and things like that. Does that help, especially with the team knowing, okay, if we lose a game, we lose a game, but that's not the end of the world. Whereas before that, losing a game, prior to 2020, losing a game was unheard of.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. We do have some examples how this thing has worked and how everyone's had to be flexible. And I also think just with our football team playing right now, just some of the stuff that they've gone through, we've learned a lot. And like I said, I think our administration and our medical personnel have done as good a job as you could possibly do. They've done just a fantastic job in giving us a chance. And like I said, we're just going to have to adjust on the fly and make it work.
Up next, Whitney Harding.
Hey, Coach. You've talked about the flexibility. You've talked about the logistics and seeing what other teams have done. It's easy to talk about. How are you helping the women with their mental health? You said you have a text group with coaches and things. What kind of unique things are you all doing to make sure that they stay upbeat during all of this wacky going on?
No, it's a great point. And that I think the hardest part for us is we didn't have everybody here in the summer, and I didn't bring back anybody who was going to have to live on campus in a dorm. And the reason was, like, for example, I had a freshman coming from New York City, and I didn't want her first experience at Ohio State to be coming to the gym, working out for an hour or two, and then us having to say, you need to go back in the dorm and spend the next 22 hours there. I just don't think that would have, to your point, I think that would have been bad for mental health. So as it kind of relates to the summer, we were not together. And I think that was the hardest part for our kids, not being around each other because they really like each other. Since we've now got everybody here, starting when school started in August, our kids, like I said, they've spent mostly just time with each other just so they can do the best they can to try to avoid getting the virus. And so I think they've really done a great job supporting each other and making sure that everybody's okay. I do think it'll be a little bit harder around the holidays too, coming up. That's something that we're going to have to make sure we have a good plan for, just mental health and so forth.
Up next, Wyatt Crocher.
Yeah, through all this crazy times, Kevin, leadership's always important in a season, but have you seen the leaders on your team, more veteran players, step up and have to be even more so leaders for this team in such an uncertain year?
Yeah, definitely. Braxton Miller's done a great job. She has the most game experience of anybody in our program. And so she's done a really good job helping the younger people and communicating them just kind of what we do and how we do it. And Dorka and Aaliyah Patty also have done a really good job with that as well. So, those three are kind of our upperclassmen have really done a good job with leadership so far.
Yeah, and you bring back your entire starting five from last season. Do you have any thoughts on if you're going to run with that starting five to begin this year? Have you made that decision yet?
I haven't. I mean, they've all played well, so they've put themselves in position to certainly be significant contributors again, and so that could happen. I really haven't made a final determination yet. Probably do that tomorrow, but they've all certainly done a nice job.
Okay, that's it for the hands that I see raised. Does anyone want to ask a question? We'll do kind of like a lightning round. You just go ahead, or we can let Coach McGuff go.
Candace, can I ask Kevin, what's like a day before and now the shoot around pregame? What does that all look like with this with this change in events?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, before we get to any of that, we start with testing. So we get tested 6 days a week, and certainly on every game day. Our opponents get tested as well. And so assuming that happens, then the shoot arounds are kind of similar times unless the men are playing, and we have to adjust that way. And but the biggest thing is the testing.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Coach McGuff.
If I could just ask, I see that the AP poll, they've got you in at number 20. Just your thought about that, and maybe the Big Ten race as well, who you see as probably the toughest competitors year in and year out. Some of those names don't change a whole lot, but I don't know, your thought about where they put you guys, and maybe, you know, what to look out for, I guess, in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So regarding the poll, I think based on where we ended last year and who we returned, that's probably a fair place to start for us. And with the Big Ten, it's going to be a really interesting season because, you know, Maryland has been really dominant, and they return a lot in terms of talent. They lost some great kids, and I guess the biggest difference for them, their talent level is the same, maybe aren't quite as deep as they've been, but they're going to certainly be a team that competes for the championship. Indiana returns, I think, their whole roster after having a great season last year, and they were picked first by the coaches, and I think deservedly so. Northwestern had a great year last year and returns almost everybody. And then I think just in general, there are a lot of really, really, really good teams. I don't think there's one team that can run away with it. I don't think there's one team that's going to dominate the league, but there are a lot of great teams, and it's going to be a dogfight every night. And
I know schedules are in a bit of state of flux, but is there anybody in the top 15 that you can definitively say, or top 20 or whatever, a marquee non-conference game that you're looking forward to? Anybody in particular that you guys have plucked off so far?
No, we originally were going to play in a tournament that was going to have Kentucky in it, who's got a great team right now. And that was our biggest non-conference. Now, so we have a lot of really good games that we're trying to play, but nobody right now that's in the top 15.
Okay.
Okay, last call. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Coach McGuff.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing, and come visit us over at BuckeyeGrove.com for all the best Ohio State information on the web.